Good morning, church. It's great to be in the church. It's sad to not see everyone out this morning, but I'm glad that we have made the decision to be safe and but still be able to press on and hear from the Word of God this morning. So even though I can't see you, I'm glad you're able to see me and we're able to get into the Word of God. Just a quick announcement for this morning. Pastor Aaron and his family, they're feeling better. They're on the mend, it seems like. Moving forward for the rest of November, a decision hasn't been made officially yet on what we're going to do with the services, if we'll have them in person or online, but a decision will be made by Wednesday. So be looking for that. I'm sure Pastor Aaron will post a video of any updates that we come up with. So again, that decision will be made by Wednesday, if not sooner. This morning, we're going to be in John chapter 3, verse 30. And for many of you, you're probably sitting there thinking, I know this verse. It's a familiar verse. I don't remember exactly what it says, but John chapter 3, verse 30, that's a verse that just kind of comes to mind. And John the Baptist gives these extremely memorable words in John chapter 3, verse 30. And it's very simple, and it says, He must increase, but I must decrease. And it's a short verse, it's a simple verse, it's one we've all probably memorized, we all know, but the question is, what is behind it? I think sometimes, at least in my own life, I have the bad habit of not going back to verses that I memorized as a child or as a teenager, not really getting deep into a verse that I've known for many years, and we just say the verses, we quote verses sometimes, and it's just almost like something we say and not really something that we understand and know in our hearts. So this morning, I just want to kind of delve in very quickly and see what is behind John chapter 3, verse 30. He must increase, but I must decrease. Let's have a word of prayer and ask God to be with us this morning. Father, we thank you for technology. We thank you that even though we're not able to be together in person, Lord, we're able to be together online, and we're able to stream a message. And Lord, I just pray this morning that this message will be helpful to everyone. Lord, I know it'll be helpful to me. And Lord, I just ask that you would continue to keep our church family safe, our community safe, as cases of this virus have risen. Lord, I pray that you'd protect us, and Lord, that we'd be making wise decisions as a church. Lord, I pray for our government as they make decisions as well with everything going on in the world today. I pray that you give them wisdom, and Lord, I just pray that you would change hearts. Lord, I just ask that you would be with me as I give your word this morning, that everything that I say would be exactly what you want me to say, and it wouldn't be anything outside of your word. Lord, I just, again, thank you for the time we're about to have in this study in your name. Amen. Most successful people throughout life, throughout the Bible, have had a powerful truth that seems to drive their life. And you can look at their life, and there's usually a statement they have made sometime in their life, and it's something that you can say, yes, Paul lived by this statement, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. He lived that out in his life. That was a powerful truth that drove him. David said, one thing I've desired of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the Lord, in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. And you can see that was something powerful that drove him. Solomon said, let us hear the whole conclusion of the matter, fear God and keep his commandments. And John the Baptist here is saying, he must increase and I must decrease. And I think that is a powerful truth that came out of the mouth of John the Baptist that he lived by. Before we look at this, let's go back a little bit into John chapter 1 and look at the setting. John chapter 1, verse 6 through 8. It says, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness of the light. So John the Baptist, for many of us, we probably know that John the Baptist was the cousin of Jesus. He was chosen by God to be actually born just a few months before Jesus, to go before him and tell people that the Messiah is coming. The Messiah that has been prophesied about all through the Old Testament, your great-great-grandfathers and your grandfathers and all the way down have been telling you about this Messiah coming. John the Baptist was the one that was going to step in right before Jesus and tell people the Messiah is here, and he was going to start baptizing people. But there was some confusion about John the Baptist. He makes it very clear all throughout the first 3 chapters that John is not the light. John is not the light. He was sent to bear witness of the light. And we as readers know it, we understand it. But as people in this time, the people that were around John the Baptist, they didn't really get it. They heard it, but they didn't understand that John the Baptist was not the light. And so he reiterates over and over and again, I am not the light. I just came to bear witness. And we see John, he starts to get a big following, as of course he would. He's doing these great things, saying these great things. And he starts to get this great following. He has disciples of his own. And the religious leaders are sent to him because people are taking an interest in him. And they're saying, go find out who this man is. And in John chapter 1, verse 20, it says, at the end of verse, we'll go back to 19, it says, and this is the testimony of John, when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask, who are you? Verse 20, he confessed and did not deny, but confessed, I am not the Christ. So again, over and over again, he's having to say, I am not the Christ. I am not Jesus. I am not the Messiah. And again, in verse 23 through 27, it says, he said, I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as the prophet Isaiah said. Now they had been sent from the Pharisees. They asked him, then why are you baptizing if you are neither the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophet? John answered them, I baptize with water, but among you stands one who you do not know, even who comes after me, the strap of whose sandal I am not worthy to untie. And so, with this confusion of, okay, John, if you're doing all these things, how are you not the Christ? If you're doing all these things, how are you not the Messiah? And in John chapter 3, verse 25 through 26, and we're going to skip to that here, but while we wait, since the end of chapter 1, Jesus has now stepped in to the scene. He performs his first miracle in chapter 2, and Jesus begins to gain a following. And the followers of John, John's disciples, had noticed that more people were coming to Jesus than coming to John. We read in chapter 3, verse 25 through 26, with this in mind, now a discussion arose between some of John's disciples and a Jew over purification. And they came to John and said to him, Rabbi, he who was with you across the Jordan, to whom you bore witness, look, he is baptizing and all are going to him. Now you can kind of see that his disciples, the very followers of John, they called him rabbi, they called him teacher. They said, look, the man that you bore witness of, the man that you've been saying is the Messiah, look, he's telling people of these great things, and he's preaching to them, and he's giving them these great truths, and they're following him. And I don't know if the disciples really liked that, because for us, we don't like being number two. We don't like when people go ahead of us. We don't like whenever the focus was once on us and now it goes to someone else. We don't like second place. We don't go to volleyball games or basketball games or soccer games holding up signs that says, we're number two. So how is John going to react to this? He's a human. He's sinful. How is he going to react knowing that all these people are now leaving him? The focus is off John and it's going to Jesus. Someone else has stepped in and they're more popular, they're more famous, they have more people following him. You know, it's hard when someone is picked over you to do something. And I think it's interesting that we like to be picked for things. We like to be chosen for things. Even if we don't want to do something, we like to be asked, right? Whether it's in the church, well, I can't believe no one's asked me to work nursery. Well, do you want to work nursery? Well, no, but they didn't ask. Well, I can't believe no one has asked me to come up here and sing a song. Well, do you want to go up there and sing a song? No, but they haven't asked. And sometimes we want to be needed, we want to be pursued and asked to do things, but whether we really want to do it or not. And so how is John going to react to this when being asked about how these people are going to Jesus instead of him? This is a defining moment for John. spiritual maturity usually happens over time, over experience, over time in the Word, over time going through life circumstances, growing closer in your relationship with God. We get this spiritual maturity. That's usually why someone who has been saved for many years is a lot more mature than someone who is a baby Christian, because they've had that time to mature. But sometimes, just like in life, there are moments of maturity where you make a big leap. I think this is going to be one of those big leaps for John. And I don't know if John was prepared for this moment. I don't know if he kind of knew this day would come. But he was ready to answer, and his answer was the best one that we could think of. And when all these questions arose around him, John answers, and he says, "He must increase, but I must decrease." And this morning, I want to talk about the things that John understood about Jesus that allowed him, Jesus, to increase and allowed John to decrease. The first thing we're going to see here is in verse 27. After he's asked these questions in verse 27, it says, John answered, "A person cannot receive even one thing unless it is given from him from heaven." So here he is talking about his life and his possessions and everything about himself. He's not just talking about money, and he's not just talking about worldly possessions. He's talking about his whole person. Everything that makes John John, everything that makes you you. We can't receive anything. We can't obtain anything in life. We can't get anywhere in life unless it is given to us from heaven. That's what John is saying here. Notice he's talking personally, but he also makes a general statement in verse 27 when he says, John answered, "A person cannot receive even one thing." He doesn't say, "I can receive." He says, "A person can receive not one thing." It's a simple truth. It's an obvious truth. It's one that we've heard thousands and thousands of times. If you've grown up in church, if you've grown up in Sunday school, we've been told this over and over and over again, that everything we get in life is from God. And it's very easy to say, but sometimes it's hard to really understand. To understand that to realize, like John does, that the designer, the orchestrator, the sustainer of my life is not myself, it is Jesus. He has sovereignty in everything, every part of my life, not just our possession. He has sovereignty over our looks, over our family, over the opportunities He's given us, over our relationships, over our reputation. He has placed us where He has placed us. All of this is under God's control. The designer of my life is Jesus, not myself. And because I didn't design my life, since I didn't orchestrate my life, since I didn't create my life, all good things that are given from heaven are from God and not from me. And you see, we're often full of ourselves. I'm often full of myself. I look at my life and I think, oh, look how great I've positioned myself. Look at the things I've done here, and look at what I've accomplished here to set me up to where I am here. And it'd be very easy to pat myself on the back or to enjoy the praise of other people when they say, "Oh, wow, you've done such a great job. We're so proud of you." I look at my life, and oftentimes the things that drives me and drives us is what we want more than what the designer wants. In my 5th grade Bible class, we're going through the book of John fairly slowly. We're going through the book of John and the other Gospels. But it's often brought up by the 5th graders when Jesus or when God decides to do something and they think or they say, well, that's not fair. Why would He do that? I don't understand this. And I've told them, if you create something, if I were to build something, because I created it, because I built it, I have the right to do with whatever I built, and no one can really question it. If I want to make it better, I can make it better. If I want to destroy it and build it back up, I can destroy it and build it back up. It's mine to do with as I please. And God created everything. And we think of that in the big picture, but sometimes we don't think of that in the small picture of your individual life. He created you to be you, to fulfill a purpose for His will. But we try. You look at society, and society tells us, blaze your own path, do your own thing, do what makes you happy. We live in a culture that if you are doing what makes you happy, no one else can say anything against what you were doing. Burger King's famous line has always been, have it your way, and that's how we want it. Don't live in the shadow of the Almighty God. Don't take up your cross and follow Jesus every day. Don't do things that make you feel uncomfortable. Do things that make you happy. And we have a great responsibility as humans. I think the Bible is very clear that we have decisions to make. We have responsibility as humans. We have to give an answer for what we do. Just because God is the creator, He's the sustainer, doesn't mean we just sit back passively and let things happen. We have a responsibility that we have to fulfill. God has a will for our lives. But we can never forget that everything that is given to us, not one thing, we can't get one thing without it being from heaven. Jesus tells us in the Bible, without me you can do nothing. Without me you can do nothing. James says every perfect gift came down from above. I wholeheartedly believe that God wants us to be ambitious. He wants us to have goals. He wants us to work hard. But while we are being ambitious and while we are working and while we are striving, don't be confused into thinking that anything good in your life or in my life is of me. Everything that we own is on loan from God. I love that thought, that everything we have is loaned to us. The brain inside your head is loaned to you. The heart pounding inside your chest, giving you life, is on loan from you. Every single breath you take is on loan. It's not yours. You're just using it. There's no way that we can orchestrate our own lives. I think you can see this all throughout the world. You just think of the manufacturing world. And you think of everything that it takes to make a car. From getting the crude oil and making it into usable energy, to get the coal, to make it into usable energy, to get the ore for the metals, to be able to make the machinery, to all these things that go into just making something simple that we drive every day in a car, or everything that goes into making a podium or a microphone, everything that goes into that, no one can just go out and make that by themselves. You need other people to do other things. And with that thought, there's no way that we can orchestrate our life. We are where we are today because of God. God has designed it, and here we sit, there you sit, under the circumstances we're under. And so, I'm not going to take credit. John's not going to take credit. We shouldn't take credit for anything good in our life. The next thing we're going to see is in verse 28. It says, you yourselves bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before Him. I almost wonder if John's getting a little annoyed here. I mean, verse 1 to verse 3, he's continually saying, I'm not the Christ. I'm not the light. I'm not Him. So who is Christ? Christ, we know, He's the one who was sent to earth. He was 100% man. He was 100% God. He was the Messiah. He was the one sent to save the sins of the world, to die for the sins of the people, to fulfill the law. It was only through Him. We've been talking again in the 5th grade class that the animals, they could just cover sin. They could cover it up, but they couldn't take it away. Jesus came to take it away. That is Christ. John knew that's Christ, that's not me. The Savior, the King of the world, the Creator of the world, that's Jesus, and I'm not Him. He's just saying, I was sent before Him. So is it okay if Jesus increases and I decrease? Of course it is. I'm not the Christ. Again, we go back to this thought that we like to be needed. We like others to need us. We want people to look at us, to want to know our perspective, to want our advice. It feels good when someone comes to us and says, hey, I'm having this problem. What would you do? Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What would you do? We have this drive within us to help those and be wanted and be valued and be needed. But a very sobering thought that hit me a few weeks ago is I'm not what people need. I'm not what people need. If I can be honest for a second, when I look at Mount Morris Community Church, I sometimes look at it and think to myself, how in the world am I going to grow this youth program? What can I do? What can I say? What kind of program can I build? What can I do here? I often wonder, what can the elders and Pastor Aaron, what can we do, and the deacons, what can we do to fill the seats and to get more people and to bring more life into the church? And if I'm honest, sometimes I have these thoughts, not thinking for a second, we are not what people need. Jesus is what people need. And as long as we are giving people Jesus from His Word and praying and trusting the Holy Spirit to move, that's all we can do. You're not what people need. I'm not what people need. He is, and John understood that. He says, I am not the Christ. It's okay if people leave me and go to Him. They need Him. Jesus says, if any man thirst, come to me and drink. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the door, the shepherd. I am the way, the truth, and the life, the true vine, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. I am He that liveth and was dead and is alive forevermore. I have the keys to hell and to death, and you don't. And it's a humbling thought that sometimes I fail to go and spread the good news because I'm thinking in my mind, in my heart, that I'm what people need and I'm not enough. And if I can be honest, sometimes I will look at people and I think to myself, how in the world would they ever be saved? Living the way they live, thinking the way they think, the politics that they have, the worldview they have. How in the world are they ever going to understand and to accept the love of Christ? And I continually am reminded, if it's just me giving them me, they're not. But if I give them Jesus, that's what they need, and it's the Holy Spirit that'll work. The reason people ought to be attracted to this church, the reason people ought to be attracted to us as individual Christians is because they see Jesus shining through our lives. They don't see us. The reason that I like having a cell phone is not because I like to carry around this thing that is plastic and I just like it in my pocket. I like the information it holds. The reason we enjoy computers is not because they're a good centerpiece at the dinner table. It's because they have information that we need. And the reason people should want to come to us is because the information that we hold. The reason that people should want to come to the Bible is because the information that it holds. And I know for me, and maybe I'm not alone in this, I think oftentimes I'm not effective in witnessing and leading in my home and being the example I'm supposed to be. I'm not effective in being a pastor and being a friend because people see way too much of me and not enough of Jesus. When people come to me for advice, it's usually, what does Andrew think? It's not, what does the Word of God say? And John the Baptist knew, if I get in the way, if I give people me and not Jesus, I'm going to lead them astray. So I will tell you again, I am not the Christ. I'm not what people need. It's all about Him. And I think for myself, if I understood this more, if I really grasped some of this more, I'd probably share the good news of Christ a lot more than I do. Then he goes on and he ends, or we're going to kind of end before he says he must increase and I must decrease. First, we've seen that he tells them a person can receive not one thing unless it's from heaven. Then he reiterates, I'm not the Christ, I'm not what people need. And then lastly here, he says, you yourself bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before him. Verse 29, the one who has the bride is the bridegroom. The friend of the bridegroom who stands and hears him rejoices greatly at the bridegroom's voice. Therefore, this joy of mine is now complete. This is probably one of my favorite passages in the Bible. This is probably one of my favorite pictures of Jesus, of Christ in the church, because once we understand weddings and the culture of the day, this picture of Jesus as the bridegroom and the church as the bride, it just makes more sense. It's a more beautiful picture. Again, to go back to my 5th grade class, it's a little bit humorous, but I think they're getting it. When I brought this verse up, the thought, at least for the 5th grade boys, the thought of them being the bride they kind of cringed a little bit at that. They didn't really like that thought. I'm the bride, I'm a guy. And once we really delved into this picture, it's a beautiful picture. Because the wedding in that days, today in our culture, the wedding is all about the bride. It's all about what dress did she pick out, how did she get her hair done, who did she choose to be the florist, what kind of catering did they get. It's all about the bride. We look back and everyone stands up and the music is playing and it's all about the bride. Back then it would have been more about the groom. The groom would pursue, the groom would request or initiate the engagement. And it's not like it is today where oftentimes we just live right across the road or we go to church or we work with the person that we meet that we're going to marry or we meet them in college. They oftentimes didn't live right across the road. Sometimes they would have lived a long distance from each other. And so they would have entered this engagement and the groom would then go and he would prepare the house and he would get the land ready, he would get the animals ready, and he would set everything up that they needed to have for their wedding and for their marriage. And then when he was ready, he would go back and he would tell the bride he was ready, and they would have a week-long feast and celebration of their marriage. And when we understand that, and what else is interesting about this, just a little side note, the bride, it's not like the bride got a phone call, hey, houses, we're 2 months out on the house, be planning, call the florist, call the people that are going to be making the dress, get all that stuff figured out. The second they entered into the engagement, the bride just had to be prepared. It could be a month, it could be 6 months until the groom was ready, but I need to be prepared because whenever he shows up, if I'm not ready, then I don't know what we're going to do. And so when we understand a wedding, when we understand the picture that is painted, when we are told that Jesus is the bridegroom and the church is the bride, it makes so much more sense that Jesus, he came to us, he pursued us, he offered a covenant with us, he offered salvation to us. And when we enter that, he now goes to a place to prepare a place for us. And we don't know when he's coming back, but we have to be prepared. And as beautiful as that of a picture that is, John is reminded that he is not the groom. He's the friend of the groom. Now, I don't know how many weddings everyone's been in, but I've been in a few weddings now as a groomsman. I've been a best man in one, and I can tell you I love weddings. I don't like the planning of it or the cleaning up, but the 20 minutes that everything is all about, I love that part. I love being a groomsman because it's a moment for you to be completely selfless and make sure everything is perfect for your very good friend standing there about to get married. When I was in my very first wedding, I wasn't in a wedding until a little bit later in my adult life, in my young adult life at least, and I had always wanted to be in a wedding. And a friend of mine, he asked me if I would be in his wedding, and I was excited. I couldn't wait to be in his wedding. I already planned in my mind I'm going to do everything I can to make this day perfect for him. And I remember we were going to go golfing the morning of the wedding. And where the church was and where we were going to golf was about hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes away from where he and his wife are going to live. And we're having the rehearsal dinner and the rehearsal gathering, and it's late at night, and we're cleaning up, and my friend stops and he says, "Guys, I forgot my golf clubs at the house." And we have all these other things that we're supposed to be doing with the family and all these things, and he's like, "I don't know what I'm going to do," and he was upset because we were all looking forward to golfing and he wouldn't have clubs, and I remember we just said, "Hey, don't worry about it, we'll figure something out, and you go have fun, you enjoy yourself." And me and a few groomsmen, we drove hour and 45 minutes there, got some golf clubs, hour and 45 minutes back. We got back at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and our tee time was set for 6:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock, something like that. And I remember that entire time, I wasn't thinking to myself, "This is awful. I can't believe I have to do this. Oh, this is such an inconvenience. I'm missing out on sleep." I remember I can't wait to see the look on my friend's face whenever we pull in with his golf clubs. And he can have a sigh of relief because that's a stressor that was taken off of him. And I tell that story to tell this. John says in verse 29, "The friend of the bridegroom who stands and hears him rejoices greatly at the bridegroom's voice. Therefore, this joy of mine is now complete." John didn't view his service to Jesus as an obligation. John didn't view his service to Jesus as an inconvenience. John's service to Jesus was the greatest joy he could have in his life. I think we can say that's true for other people that follow Jesus all throughout history. We can see the great missionaries all the way back to Paul, who have given up so much in life to follow Jesus, to preach his word, to reach lost people. Paul's greatest joy, and I think we see this in Philippians, Paul's greatest joy in life was knowing that he was serving God. We look at missionaries all around the world that have given up comfort and they've given up convenience, and their greatest joy in life is knowing that they're spreading the gospel to people that might have never heard it. So the question is, am I willing to make life about him and not about me? Remembering how good that felt the day of that wedding, how good that felt to do something selflessly for a groom when I was a groomsman. I hope that same joy happens whenever I serve the Lord. Because even though as a church we are the bride, as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, we are the groomsmen who stand beside him, and we hear his voice, and we rejoice greatly, and we serve him, and therefore our joy is complete in serving him. If I viewed my relationship with Michaela, my wife, as an obligation, the joy would be gone very quickly. I still don't really enjoy shopping, but I used to hate shopping. Couldn't stand going. I thought it was pointless unless you actually needed something, and my wife likes to do it. And she doesn't even like to buy things. She's not a big spender, but she just likes to go and look. When we bought our first house, she wanted to go to Home Depot just to look. She didn't want to buy new things. She just wanted to look, and I always had this thought, I don't want to go and just look. If I'm going to get something, I'm going to go and get it. But I remember seeing how happy it made her when I said, "Hey, let's go look." Why not? Let's just go look. And what happened over time is what I used to hate, what I used to not enjoy, what I used to find as an inconvenience, as a waste of time, I now enjoyed because I saw the joy that it gave her. And if we view our relationship with Jesus Christ, if we view our relationship with the creator of this world as an obligation, as an inconvenience, as I really don't want to do this, but I guess I will because I have to. I really don't want to pray, but if I don't, something bad might happen to me. And we sometimes treat prayer like a good luck charm, or I don't really want to go to church, but I guess I should. I don't really want to be involved in ministry or reach my family or my friends or my coworkers, but I guess I have to. If we viewed our entire life as an obligation to Jesus, we would not have any joy. And I think I lose joy in my own personal life when I do view my relationship with Jesus as a list of things that I have to get done. So John is trading what he wants for what Jesus wants, and he is discovering that instead of making him sad, instead of making him upset because he's not getting his way, he's getting complete joy. And then in verse 30, he says, "And because of all these reasons, he must increase and I must decrease." You know, I increase when I take credit for where I am in life and for what I have. I increase when I think I'm what people need. I increase when I get more joy out of serving myself than serving God. And we decrease when we remind ourselves daily that everything that I get today is from God. When I get out of the way and let Jesus shine through me, and I decrease when my joy is serving God instead of serving myself. Let's pray. Father, again, we thank you for allowing us to be able to be together virtually this morning. Lord, I thank you for the words that John gave us in John chapter 3, verse 30, that he must increase and I must decrease. And Lord, I pray that be true in our own lives, that we'd just grasp onto this truth and understand that people need you. And even though we're the tools that God may use to bring himself to other people, Lord, we just need to trust that he will do the work, and we just need to be obedient to that. Lord, I pray again that you would continue to protect our church, Lord. We pray that if it be your will, that you'd keep us in good health, be with those that are not feeling well, and Lord, we know there are many in our community and other churches around us that are struggling with this virus. I pray that you'd give us protection, and Lord, I pray that we be salt and life in our community, salt and light in our community, and the world around us. That's in your name I ask these things. Amen.